Hello everyone, welcome again to E-Class English Studies. Today we shall be considering a topic, Expo, how to identify verb modifying adverbs. In other words, adverbs that modify verbs. Wow, this is actually part one of this lesson. And remember, this lesson is brought to you courtesy SAM's ESL, EFL, E-Tutorial. We are based in Nigeria, West Africa. I am once again your preceptor, Samuel Ikechukwu Emochwagum. Thank you very much for joining us again, of course, in this edition. I'd like to urge you to subscribe our YouTube channels, like, and of course, share. Follow us on other social media handles of ours like Facebook, TikTok, and the rest. Thank you, and let's get to the details of this lesson. Now, this is a starter. I wouldn't want to bore you with the idea of reading this passage. Now, I'd like you to identify adverbs in this passage. Okay, now while you're doing that, let's do it from here too. First, we have the adverb slowly, and then the adverb cautiously. These are adverbs in this passage. They actually modify or re-explain the verb tiptoed. The next adverb is softly. These adverb actually modifies or re-explains the verb illuminating. We have the next adverb, carefully. Carefully here is an adverb that actually modifies the verb navigating. Okay, it modifies the verb navigating. Here is another adverb in the passage. It actually modifies the verb reached. Alright, and then finally the adverb quietly modifies the verb retrieved. Okay, now, so this is it. Let's just start this way. You can on your own identify adverbs in any passage of your choice. This is one way to enrich our knowledge of parts of speech in the English language. Okay, now let's quickly take a look at the next points that we have in the course of this lesson. Alright, now the definition. What then is an adverb? An adverb is any word that can modify. To modify here means to re-explain, okay, to describe verbs, adjectives, and of course adverbs. In some cases, they can modify an entire sentence structure. But then I'd like to teach you this. Why then do we have this word termed adverb? Take a look at it again. Adverb. When we say adverb, what crosses your mind? What crosses your mind? Now, I'd like us to do something that mathematicians do. Let's cancel A and D. When we cancel A and D, we're going to be left with the word verb. Take a look at that. Adverb. What does that mean? It actually means that adverb will mostly modify verbs. So take a look at that. They mostly modify verbs. They partly modify adjectives, adverbs, and others. But please understand that adverbs will mostly modify verbs. Please take note, and then I hope this is very clear. Now, always remember that. So like I said earlier, we'll say by far. The most common use of adverbs is to do what? The most common use of adverbs is actually to modify. Like I said, most common use of adverb is to modify verbs. Okay, they modify mostly verbs. So take note of that. Okay, now that takes us to the next point, and that is of course the major reason for this lesson. Rule 1. What then is rule 1? Rule 1 simply tells us that adverbs will always answer questions. So when they answer the question when, we talk about adverb of time. When they answer the question where, we're talking about adverb of place. The question how, adverb of manner. The question why, adverb of reason. And the question how often, we're simply talking about adverb of frequency. Now, let's take a look at this. Understand that when they pose these kind of questions, when adverbs pose these questions, they modify verbs. Though they can also modify other part of speech, but they mostly modify verbs when they pose this kind of question. So examples are seen here on the screen. Now, the first question, when did they pack the truck? The answer will be, they packed the truck yesterday. So yesterday is an adverb of time, telling us when the truck was packed. Another adverb question will be, where did they load the truck? The answer would be, they loaded the truck there. There is an adverb of place, describing the verb loaded. Please take notes. Alright, that is yesterday modifying the verb packed. Okay, the next adverb question will be, how did they drive the truck? This poses a question of manner, and the answer will be, they drove the truck carefully. So carefully modifies the verb drove. Okay, and then of course you have, how often do they use the truck? So the answer will not be, they use the truck frequently, and frequently here modifies the verb use. So when adverbs pose these questions, they actually modify verbs. They can to some extent modify other parts of speech, but this is one of the rules. Okay, now quickly look at rule 2, which is the major rule, the core rule for this lesson. Rule 2. What is rule 2 telling us? Rule 2 tells us about the mobility characteristics of an adverb. Now take a look at this. If a word can be moved from a different position in a sentence, then the word is an adverb that modifies a verb. Please take note. If a word has the temerity, if a word can be moved from one position, from a different position in a sentence, okay, then that word must be an adverb. And if it is an adverb, it modifies a verb. Please take note of this. Now, let's take a look at a few examples, and then we'll proceed from there. Number 1, look at the original statement there. Very important. They packed the lorry yesterday. Can yesterday be moved? Yes. Can we move it? Yes, we can. Now, look at this. Yesterday, they packed the lorry. So we've moved yesterday from the final position to the initial position. Take a look at the next example. They loaded the lorry there. Can we move there? Can we move it? Yes, we can. And when we do, we have it this way. There, they loaded the lorry. So there has moved to the initial position. The next one is carefully. They drove the lorry carefully. Can we move carefully? Yes, we can. If we move it, we're going to have something like this. Carefully they drove the lorry. So lorry carefully has been moved to the initial position. And then the next example, they carefully drove the lorry. Carefully has been moved to the middle position, okay, of the sentence. Now we also have the same with frequently. They use the lorry frequently. Frequently is actually at the final position of the sentence. And then can we move it again? Yes, frequently they use the lorry. Frequently has been moved to the initial position. Can we move it again? Yes. We now have they frequently use the lorry. So frequently has been moved to the medial position. Alright. Now, what are we trying to point out here? We are simply saying that if an adverb has this kind of characteristics of mobility, moving from one part of the sentence to another, then it can be classified as an adverb that modifies a verb. Please take notes. Teachers take notes. Students also take note. This is the core Expo. When we talk about adverbs modifying verbs, they have the characteristics of moving from one part of the sentence to another. So when an adverb behaves like that, then of course we term it an adverb that modifies a verb. So quickly take notes. Like I said, adverb, when they have a sense of mobility, as we can see here, it simply means they can be moved from the beginning of a sentence to the final position of a sentence. When they behave that way, then we'll say that kind of adverb will of course modify a verb. Now this is a simple exercise. It's a task, and I'd like you to walk around these tasks. Now try as much as possible to answer this question, and then we'll discuss it in our next meeting in part 2. Alright, at this point I'd like us to call it a day. Thank you once again for listening, and of course for joining us steadfastly. I am Samuel Ikechukwu Emochuogun. I am actually your preceptor. I'd like to meet you again on this platform. At this point, before I sign out, I'd like to urge you to subscribe our YouTube channel, like and share the contents.